They underestimated him, judging his size, his origin, his ambition, unaware of what the future would bring.
By the late 1700s, Europe was a continent ruled by kings, but trembling beneath revolution.
In France, anger exploded into revolution, shattering centuries of monarchy overnight. Mocked for his accent and ignored by peers, Napoleon found refuge in discipline, numbers, and dreams of greatness.
As revolutionary France went to war with Europe, opportunity emerged from chaos. In 1793, a single siege would launch Napoleon from obscurity into legend.
While others saw chaos, Napoleon saw angles, timing, and decisive force.
Toulon fell, the British fleet fled, and Napoleon's name echoed across France.
By 1795, Paris stood on the edge of civil war once again.
Napoleon was ordered to defend the government by any means necessary. With a single command, Napoleon unleashed violence that ended the uprising in minutes.
He moved faster than any general before him, striking where enemies felt safe.
Napoleon shattered larger armies by breaking them apart and crushing them piece by piece.
Each triumph fed a growing legend that spread faster than the armies themselves. At just 26, Napoleon returned to France as a national hero. Seeking to strike Britain indirectly, Napoleon turned his gaze toward the ancient world of Egypt.
Against overwhelming odds, Napoleon crushed his enemies using modern tactics against ancient formations.
Stranded in Egypt, Napoleon faced isolation, but not defeat. While Napoleon won on land, disaster struck at sea. Leaving his army behind, Napoleon secretly sailed back to a France drowning in crisis.
The government was corrupt, unstable, and losing the faith of its people.
In a single bold move, Napoleon seized power without firing a shot.
At last, France had stability, but it came at a price. The Republic survived in name, but real power now belonged to Napoleon.
Napoleon rebuilt France with law, order, and efficiency, reshaping society itself.
He codified laws for all citizens, creating equality before the law for the first time. In 1804, Napoleon crowned himself emperor, declaring authority came from no one but himself.
Napoleon's armies dominated Europe, moving with precision few thought possible.
At a pivotal moment, he outsmarted his rivals with clever strategy, achieving a brilliant outcome.
Next came Prussia, overwhelmed by speed, coordination, and Napoleon's relentless drive.
Austria was humbled once more, forced to bend to French dominance. Unable to conquer Britain, Napoleon tried to starve it through economic blockade. Allies grumbled, smugglers thrived, and resentment simmered across Europe.
In 1808, he entered new lands to implement his ideas, but faced unexpected challenges beyond his control.
Spain became the ulcer, a slow, grinding conflict draining French strength.
The British landed forces to aid the resistance, making the war even bloodier. French armies bled slowly, morale weakened, and Napoleon's reputation faced its first serious test.
In 1812, Napoleon turned east, assembling the largest army Europe had ever seen. Napoleon's Grand Army marched deep into Russian territory, confident yet unaware of the looming trap. The Russians retreated, leaving nothing but fire and ruin in their wake.
Napoleon reached Moscow, only to find the city abandoned and aflame.
The Russian winter, merciless and early, began to claim the invaders. What began as a triumphant invasion turned into a nightmare of starvation, disease, and death.
Napoleon's once mighty army was shattered, thousands lost to cold, hunger, and relentless pursuit.
Sensing weakness, the Allied powers closed in on France from every direction.
By 1814, events had turned against him, and his journey reached an unavoidable turning point.
Napoleon abdicated the throne, ending his reign over France, at least for now.
In 1815, Napoleon escaped exile, gambling everything on one final return.
On a small island, far from the world he once knew, he spent his days in...
Without firing a shot, Napoleon reclaimed France and began the 100 Days.
Across Europe, monarchs set aside rivalries to destroy Napoleon once and for all.
Napoleon moved fast, knowing time was his greatest enemy.
On a rain-soaked field near Waterloo, Napoleon faced his final test. Napoleon struck hard, believing speed and pressure would break his enemies.
Delays, uncertainty, and small miscalculations slowly disrupted the flow of events.
As the battle raged, Prussian forces appeared, sealing Napoleon's fate.
French formations collapsed, and the myth of invincibility shattered forever.
Banished to the remote island of St. Helena, Napoleon vanished from the world he once ruled.
There, in isolation, Napoleon spent his final years reliving victories and justifying defeats. In 1821, Napoleon Bonaparte died far from France, but not from history.
Tyrant or visionary, Napoleon reshaped Europe, and his shadow still lingers today.